and like up-to-date movies, you know, things that came out of theaters 2 months prior. So
Not
we could get
Toy Story 1 or?
I mean, you can go back too.
Yeah,
but,
that's how Park Valley is. They have.
It's only a couple $100 to throw that event. So I
Yeah.
think, you know, like you said, have it where you have the band playing and everybody getting in their seats, and then once sun goes down, then you have a movie in the park. It's not expensive, but
Yeah.
it's something to get out and
Yes. Yes.
enjoy.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? So I think without objection, I think we have a consensus that as far as the deferring the money over into the next year's budget is not an issue. And seeing no objection with that, and to your recommendations as well as Councilman Morse's idea to keep that floating until we can maybe just lock it into a date.
Okay. I will
Okay.
plan to work on the updated Haymarket Day application and release it after our June town council meeting. That way, I have a little bit more time to see if anything changes with the governor. And then if you guys have any questions or thoughts, you can send me an email, and we can kind of work on that.
What are the rates again?
$425 for an out-of-town business, $100 for an in-town business, $125 for a crafter, $150 for a nonprofit, and then I believe novelty food is $225. I have to check that. It's either $200 or $225.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. With that, we'll go into our next item here is our 21 budget presentation. We're on page 4 through 18.
Mayor, I request if we can actually go to the other items until we can get the video back up and working. Oh, it is up and working? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Do
Yes, ma'am.
we want to have this presentation during our actual town council meeting, to where we may have more folks watching?
Well, the public hearing is at the beginning, so that's what I wanted to do it. But however you want, if you all would like me to push this to the regular meeting, I'm fine with doing that as well.
Can we do it twice?
I don't see an issue
Yeah.
with it.
Because
We definitely do it twice.
during the discussions on it, I would love for the discussions to get hashed out now.
Sure.
All right, well then, I'll get into it. So the proposed budget, as you all know, we've been working on this quite substantially, especially with COVID. It's changed quite a bit of things. However, I just wanted to articulate to everyone how many different work sessions we had, and then we had the public hearing and the adoption for the tax rates, and then today is the public hearing for the proposed budget, and then the adoption for the proposed budget, which we know is going to make amendments, but the adoption of this budget is anticipated to be May or June, and then following that, I've got amendments to the FY21 budget once we have the more information, just like we've continued to talk about. I wanted to highlight some of the major points in this. One, we approved the real estate tax rate equalization from the 0.146 to the 136 per $100 assessed value. We did include the transient occupancy tax in anticipation of an early 2021 Hilton hotel completion. That may or may not happen, but it is a placeholder, and it wouldn't be difficult if we needed to take that out, whether it's a quarter, 6 months in, and we realize from the hotel that it's not going to be completed and we need to take it out.
So let's just go over that one more time. So you have a placeholder for an income, but you also have a placeholder for the expense.
Correct. So one thing that I do want to mention, when we go to talk about the budget, there's a miscalculation. In the budget that we presented, we had $12,000 set aside for tourism, but that was based on the previous ordinance that had 5% of the 7 going to tourism. But as you all know, last month, I believe it was, we changed it to go to 4% and 3%, so we just need to tweak that a little bit. So instead of it being $12,150, it'll be $7,300 will go to tourism, and the remaining would go to the general fund, which I spoke with Roberto. We'll probably put that with the CIP projects. So that's where we are anticipating putting it. And if something happens, as we all mentioned before, tourism, that's not something we're going to spend unless that money comes in. And the same thing, we would just not spend that CIP funds until the money came in from the hotel. So if it doesn't happen, it's no harm, no foul. We can adjust it at a later date. And then we also had a good portion of the budget, as you all can see. We allocated $339,571 for the town portion of the sidewalks. So that's going to be from the 66 bridge all the way here to the gravel lot here in town at the town hall. And we also have some of the stormwater that's going to get diverted all the way to this intersection here. So we're getting a lot done for that money.
Does it cross over the gravel?
It does not cross over the
Doesn't join?
gravel. Not right
Join
now.
them,
That'll be later when we work with the turn lane. Is probably when that'll be taken care of.
In our overall site improvements.
okay. This side.
Yeah.
So then on the next page, we went to some considerations for the FY 2021 budget. We wanted to focus on the completion of Jefferson Street pedestrian project. It has now began in 2011, so it's almost been a decade in the making. So we can see the finish line, so we wanted to get it across. We addressed the increasing real estate assessments by equalizing the tax rate. Some homeowners will see an increase, but these are relatively new homes and their home values are going up. So, we did the best that we could for the majority of residents. And that's where, they'll still see some increase, but not everybody. Providing exceptional professional service to our resident and businesses. A lot of you see what we do day in, day out, looking to save the town money, looking at what we can do for events to have for the citizens. So I think that's just a joint effort from town council all the way down. And then we really focused on updating the comprehensive plan. We want to move the town forward. And I also went and listed the town services and programs that we provide right now. 24/7 public safety service and everything that the police department entails and all that they do. We've got the community planning, zoning, and engineering services here in-house. We have the business and economic development assistance. Now, we would like to have the business roundtables and things like that started. We had it planned, we had it ready to go, and with COVID happening, we had to hit the brakes. But that's still a plan. Once everything opens up, we're going to move forward with it. It includes the trash and recycling collection. We have the tourism development with the Historic Museum and all of our events that Emily throws and we just talked about. The Historic District infrastructure, maintenance, street lights, public refuse, street sweeping, maintenance, and then all the maintenance of the public buildings and parking lots and everything's included in that. Then the next couple pages here, they're meal tax trends over the past 5 years. It is the history of real estate taxes, and you all can see for yourself. There have been some rate changes, so that will affect the dollar amount. But I did also want to show you guys in the meals tax trends, as of collecting the March meals tax, we are at 587,000. So we have 3 months to collect meals tax. And to my knowledge, Roberto, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have one business that hasn't turned in meals tax for March, and we're only down 9% from what we were last year. And that's for March. So it was two weeks of regular service, and then it was 2 weeks of COVID. So I think April will be when we get hit. However, we are still, we are less than 113,000 over 3 months to get to our budgeted amount. So that we'll see how April comes, but that is something just to keep track of, and we'll be sure to let you all know.
That's actually really good positive news.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Only being down 9% from last year is pretty substantial. We thought we were going to get hit a lot harder, and I think April we'll see, because that's when the stay-at-home order was initiated. So we'll see what happens here in April, and we'll provide those updates. And then you can see on the next one, we have the history of real estate taxes and revenues. So you can see total assessments based on from 2016 all the way to 2021, it continually goes up. So our town has continually seen increased assessments since FY16. So that's one of those things, people saying that we continue to increase real estate. That's not necessarily the case. When assessments go up, they do see a bigger bill. However, it's not an action that's done by town council. That is actually just the fact that more people want to live here and your home's worth more money. And then you can see the town's name. the past couple years, and then we decided to equalize, which I mentioned earlier, so that's why we ended up dropping it. And as you can see, this is as close as we could get to equalizing the rate, and that's where I mentioned some people will see an increase, but it's a very limited amount.
Before you move on, so the PWC tax rate, 2016 was 1.148?
I was going to say, I actually got these numbers from Roberto, but I believe so.
And then they've been consistent over the last 4 years or the last 3 years, and then
So they came out recently and said that they were going to leave the tax rate. It was anticipated earlier this year that they were going to increase, and then with COVID, they backed off and said they were going to remain the same. So that's what they were going to go up, and then they backed off of that. So that's where it stayed the same for exactly the 4 years.
yeah, I think we still made a good decision.
And then next page, I provided the projected operating revenue. This is where we're at without the updates because, like we had discussed, we don't have the full information from COVID and the effects of COVID. So this is what we originally had. I mean, all this is straightforward. And then what I had asked Roberto to do is instead of just giving reserve funds to make it look like the town has $1.7 million that we're ready to spend, I had him break down total funds and then the numbers that we don't have available to spend and then the unrestricted funds. So on the current reserve fund balance, you can see where we're at. And that 30% of reserves, that's like catastrophic. If something really happened, we have operating funds for, is it 90 days or 120, Roberto? Okay, so that's what that 30% of reserves, the 523,000, that's for 90 days in case we were to receive no income in any way, shape, or form. We should still be able to operate for 90 days.
And that 30% is higher than what is recommended.
This is what's recommended from Virginia Municipal League.
30 is what's recommended, or no? I thought it was
If
lower.
if I,
Right. Okay. Because that's my understanding is that what was recommended was much lower, like 15%, but we wanted to put 30% in there as a bigger buffer.
So with smaller towns too, you normally increase that percentage because just so that you can continue to operate for
Right,
a substantial period. Then I also included the current assets of town-owned property. These numbers were pooled. This is an estimate. This is not, I'm not a realtor. I'm not, so
Yeah,
this is-
I'm going to point that out. I mean, it's almost like the museum, you could double it. Town Hall's probably getting accurate. Copper Cricket, obviously, probably pretty accurate, maybe a little high. Hullfish seems like double, and Old Post Office double. And then for the park, for 400, knowing that it's over 5 acres, and we spent, I think, $1 million something to purchase it. So, but you're right. I realize it's the county's assessment, which.
So, exactly. If we haven't got, a professional realtor or anything to give us numbers or anything, but I think right under $4 million is a pretty conservative number for the town hall assets that we have. Then we've got general fund operating expenditures, just like the reserves, or the revenue, I'm sorry. This is what we have based on no information coming out of COVID, so this is something that we'll anticipate that we need to make edits for. The capital improvement projects, this has the town funds to complete the pedestrian projects. We have Blight project in here just in case, for example, across the street that we need to take care of. And then it's got some CIP expenditure funds in there as well to include town signage, police equipment, and then museum and town park work. That's all in there. We're not going to be able to get all the CIP items done. However, it's a good chunk of change that we'll be able to take care of some of this maintenance and projects that need to get done. And then also I wanted to include in here the real estate tax rates just to give you a snapshot of what it looks like for towns in this area. That goes to show you Warrenton is the only one that is lower than us out here. in Prince William and Loudoun County. And, yeah, I think, we're doing the best service we can for our residents.
Very good information. Thank you for including it.
No, not a problem. And then I have the proposed budget meeting, just because, like I mentioned earlier, the adoption for the budget will happen May or June, whichever you all decide, and then the amendments, which I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that this town council is planning on having budget amendments once we get more information from COVID, to include sales tax, meals tax, and business license. And Roberta will touch on that during the regular meeting where we're sitting with business license. Stand ready to answer any questions.
Okay.
No, phenomenal job, Chris.
Yeah.
Appreciate you putting this together, and I agree. I'd like to have this as well during our regularly scheduled meeting for all of our listening audience to be able to look and go through. But no, phenomenal presentation. Appreciate you putting it together.
Yep. No other questions, Robert? We're all good? All right. Our next item is our BB&T refund. That's our Roberta or Chris, you want to take lead on that?
Good afternoon, Council.
Oh, there you go. Nice and loud. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Yes, so the BB&T refund, this is something that was brought up through my association with being associated with the Treasurers of Virginia Association. We were giving a heads up pretty much that there's potentially a refund that many localities within Virginia were going to have to issue to BB&T Bank. This is something that caught everyone pretty much off guard. No one knew that this was actually going on due to the fact that BB&T actually went directly to the Commonwealth Department of Taxation for this refund and amendment. They didn't file it with each locality. But basically, what had happened is that in the years 2012 and 2013 and 2014, they had overestimated their net capital assets. With that overestimating, they actually paid each locality more money. Once this was brought up to me, Chris and I brought it over to attention to our town attorney. He then let us know that there was a few localities and their attorneys that were trying to research this, the legality of it, and how to best address it. Unfortunately, our town attorney and many other attorneys from localities had come to the conclusion that we are liable to have to pay it. What the Treasurers Association were able to do was to have it that they were to waive the liabilities as far as interest on these taxes that we have to refund. We were given a date of May 1st, but of course, as to when we were to make these payments in full. But considering with COVID and everything going on, our business manager, Mr. Kuhn, had went ahead and reached out to the vice president of trust, which now owns BB&T, and they went ahead and gave us an extension, understanding the situation with everyone, the extension to the end of the fiscal year. Unfortunately, the town looks to have to do a refund of totaling of $32,594. Once again, like I stated, we exhausted all avenues to try to see what, if we needed to pay this and how it would affect us. Unfortunately, we were given the news that we are going to have to pay the money back. Pretty much every locality is doing this. There's some they're getting hit a lot higher, in the millions. Even though 32 for our budget is pretty significant, it's still manageable.
Okay. Other questions regarding this?
Roberto, you had mentioned before that there would have been a penalty if we didn't pay it at a certain time, or that the penalties are waived for a certain period?
I believe, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, but I believe it's about the penalties. They're waiving the penalties to the end of this fiscal year, so it's June 30th. Now, with everything going on, I'm not sure if we could ask for a further extension if we needed to, but I believe as of right now, the extension goes to June 30th.
So the facts of the case is that they overpaid us and other localities certain amounts. By law, we have to pay it back.
Correct. We've got a letter from Virginia Department of Taxation
Right.
indicating that
And
we need to do this.
they're willing to waive some fees.
Correct. So when I reached out to the vice president, I just let him know, because this started, we got the letter from Roberto's Treasurers Association in March, around March, that we were going to need to do this. And then once the Treasurers Association worked through it, Martin and the rest of the attorneys worked through it, it finally came to the determination, I believe it was in April, towards the end of April, and that's when we added it. And what I did is I called the vice president and I said, this is something with COVID, I was planning on putting it on April's agenda, but I just didn't get the chance to. So, our town council meeting is May 4th. Would you be opposed to waiving the interest until the end of the fiscal year so that we can have this meeting and get everything squared away? And he said that would work.
What's the amount of that interest that they're waiving?
It's about 5,000 and some change. The difference, I think it'd be 38,000 and some change versus 32,000 and some change, but it comes down to like 5,300, 5,800.
I just kind of wanted to get the facts out, not just for, but mostly for the rest of the council members as we may take action on it, but also for the listening public, that this is a debt that we have to pay, that they're being lenient with us in paying it, and they're actually waiving the fees, the late fees, to the amount of just over $5,000. That we can drag our feet with this and pay the $5,000, or we can act on it, and because we're still going to have to pay.
Correct.
Whether COVID
Correct.
comes or it lingers along for another 2 years, we're going to pay. So I just kind of wanted to get the facts out there generally as we discuss it, and definitely take action later on. So thank you, guys.
Okay. With that, if there's no other questions regarding that, our next item is the additional meetings for May and June. I think as we see that things change quite rapidly over the last month or two, and especially with our meetings and calling for special meetings, I think, was it Councilman Leak that had maybe suggested having place setters, and we amended last month the resolution to allow additional meetings per month. So with that, I think the idea is maybe have them scheduled for every other Monday until this June council ends in June. So that way we have the ability, if needed, to go ahead and have a meeting already scheduled on the books as a place setter.
And then also what I wanted to do is I wanted to take this opportunity to get that information, because if we can have the meetings after the 20th, so if we can have it after May 20th, we should have meals tax from April. And that'll help us make the decisions for the budget, so we can start having some productive conversations sooner rather than later. And then the same thing, if we were able to have a meeting after June 20th, then we'll have the meals tax from April and May, and hopefully we can collect some sales tax from the state as well. And once we have all that information, that can help us make those final adjustments and make the final amendments in the budget. And since we're probably going to have to change it by more than 1%, we will have to do a public hearing. So that's where I think if we're able to set the additional meetings, my recommendation would be after May 20th and after June 20th, and this also allows staff, when we have to do the advertisements for the public hearings and everything, we know what date we're working with, and we can make sure that we get everything done right.
So with no objection, we're going to go ahead and just put those as place setters and see if it's going to be needed, and we'll have agendas and hopefully keep with that at least maybe a week in advance for putting that together.
Mr. Mayor, if I can
Yeah.
add, I don't have an
Sure.
objection to it, but with elections on May 19th, I think it would be wise if we included, if any, other persons are elected to the governing body, that they would be included during that time for meetings. I remember back in 2014 when when I was voted in but hadn't taken office as yet, there were numerous meetings. You remember there was a rush near the end with a lot of meetings, and I felt lost a bit because there were actions that were taken in the last month before I took office. And I just think it would be fair to if there's any new members coming on the council, that they be included in the meetings.
We'll
Invited, not to
invite-
speak, but not,
Invited.
yeah.
No, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
definitely.
because there's only one governing
Yeah.
body at a time, so, but yeah. But it definitely invited to attend and to, yeah.
I would think if somebody is, elected, that they would want to take that initiative.
That is
But-
true.
But you don't know.
I was so young and fresh 2014, right, that it didn't even dawn on me
Yeah.
that people would actually try to take action items 2 weeks before we
Yeah.
took office. So,
We're talking about days before
hey,
the
days
office.
before, yeah.
Reach
you know.
out to them and let them
Yeah.
know, and
So, no,
tell
there were some, Mr.
infamous-
Mayor can fill you in what stuff happened.
The
days
infamous
before.
tax refund that went like 3 days before the term end.
Okay.
And 15 minutes before midnight, I vetoed that and canceled out that decision.
I agree with
Yep.
Councilman Morris. I think it'd be a good idea to invite them.
Yep.
I do want to make sure that everyone does know, I did reach out to every member that was running, that is not a current sitting member, back on March, probably mid-March, and invited them to sit down to discuss the budget in any way, shape, or form, to see if they had any questions. None of them took me up on the offer, but I have extended that ability to where if they want
Hear
to,
that.
but none of them have wanted to do so.
Did they respond, or was it just that they were?
Mr. Passanello responded. I invited him multiple times to sit down. He didn't want to. Mr. Weir, we were supposed to meet up in late March, but he has never returned back to me my inquiry. Ms. Pater never responded. Mr. Lorson never responded when I spoke to him in person here at Town Hall. And Mr. Schneider actually did sit down with me, and we did speak.
Oh, good, okay. Well, good to know, thank you.
None responded, but
I forgot that I sat down with Mr. Schneider at Cupcake Heaven.
just wanted to make sure, because I saw you. On the cameras. No, I'm kidding, I do have access to the camera.
So with that, I think that's our last item for this work session. We've got about 8 minutes, so we'll go ahead and, no objection, a motion to adjourn our work session.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And seconded by Councilman Leak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all. We'll be back at shortly around 7 o'clock. Thanks.